is. So the point of the buyer doing their investigations, not just their inspections, but all of their investigations during that period, as is described in paragraph 14, we're defining what is as is, right? We all can walk up to the house and see it's yellow with black trim, and that it's got emerald green carpet, shag carpet, and whatever else it's got. But what's inside? What else is there that we need to know about? Ray started, and I'll throw this out there to you, Ray, and then let you pick it up for a second, and then let the questions go. We're talking about, Ray mentioned before, that in this very competitive market where you have multiple offers on just about every property, and so buyers are really trying to do everything they can, and yes, Joanne, they are trying to do everything they can to make their offers stand out. There is a temptation sometimes to have the big thing you want to make your offer stand out is to say, I'm not even going to bother with a home inspection. And I'll let you pick that up from there, Ray, what your thoughts are on that. I know what my thoughts are, but I'll let you talk about it.
Well, how's everyone doing today? My name is Ray Goslam. I am with the company Home Inspection Group. I am one of the co-owners. I think it is probably the worst idea during a transaction if you do waive your home inspection. I mean, let's just say you're buying a used car. Well, it's self-explanatory. You're buying a used car. Chances are it has problems, okay? Every home that a client is going to purchase, chances are is going to have some type of defects in it, okay? On average, throughout the nation, home inspectors find 38 defects in every property. This is brand new construction, flips, remodeled, used homes. It doesn't matter. Our job is to find defects, okay? So most of it's going to be minor in nature, which I think most of you should understand. What you should be worried about, though, are big ticket items, okay? Most of your big ticket items are centered around your main systems of the property. So this is going to be electrical, plumbing, foundation, roof, and structure, okay? If there's any issues with those items right there, chances are it's going to cost a lot of money to have those problems remedied right there. And that is probably why it's the worst idea ever to waive your home inspection. As Aaron was saying, it is a very competitive market. Pre-COVID, what we were seeing in the industry was 17-day inspection contingencies. And I pray to God one day we do get back there. Not looking like it anytime soon, though. But that was the average. It was a 17-day inspection contingency. What we're seeing right now, and I have two clients that are just blowing up my phone right now, is 5-day contingencies. So 5 to 7 day contingencies. I've even heard of a few instances recently where the clients just absolutely waived the inspection contingency. They still had us go out. We were able to get them in just to see the condition the property was in. And it's just a very bad idea. You don't want to put your client in that position. I said it before everyone logged on. There's a meme out there that says, oh, well, I waived my inspection and I saved $500. Well, good. You could put that $500 towards the $30,000 in electrical and foundation issues that are wrong with the property. Okay. There's just a lot that goes into home inspections. For example, okay, I did a $4.5 million Studio City property about a month ago. It was gorgeous. I won't say who the listing agent was. He was another KW agent, a bigger agent from another office that's near you guys. Absolutely stunning, gorgeous property. Okay. So, and I'm not finding a lot of issues with the property. It was very tastefully redone. Whoever the general contractor was did a great job on it. So I'm in the backyard and I'm getting a strong gas smell when I'm in the backyard. Okay. As an inspector, you're using all your senses. You're touching, your vision. Right now, we're at a disadvantage because of the mask. Okay, so it automatically puts inspectors at a disadvantage having to wear a mask throughout the entire property. Every now and then when nobody's around me, I will slip my nose down because smelling is a big part of inspections, okay? So I'm in the backyard and I'm getting a strong gas smell. So I'm automatically assuming the next door neighbor's fence is right there. There's a gas-operated barbecue on the other side of this fence, okay? So I'm assuming that the neighbor's gas line is leaking right there. Well, as an inspector, you're never supposed to assume anything. You're always supposed to expect the worst. Okay. So this property it was on a grade, it was on a hillside. So at the top level, I ended up going up to the top level with my ladder. I hopped my ladder up, brought it up, got to, it's pretty much your 3 stories, 4 stories above your regular normal street view right there. So when I got to the top, I noticed that the gas smell got stronger. Okay. So now I'm thinking in my head, there's no way that this little gas valve would be leaking that much where I could smell it pretty much 3 stories up. So I actually went to the neighbor's property. I knocked on his door and he tells me, he's like, man, my wife thinks I'm going crazy. I smell it all day. He's like, I don't think she could smell anything. You smell it? I was like, I smell it. So I got back to her with my gas detector. He had a brand new barbecue island, brand new gas line. It was perfect. Nothing was wrong. Didn't detect any gas. Okay. He's like, it's coming from their side of the fence. So I get back over to the property and it's strong. It's getting stronger as we're going right there. So I tell the listing agent, I'm like, look, I highly recommend you call the gas company right now. You have them come do a safety check. Okay. And this is just a great tip for you guys right here. All right. The gas company does complimentary safety checks. It's free. It costs you nothing, costs the listing agent nothing, costs the client nothing. They show up, they check all the gas lines, all gas appliances, they make sure they're operating correctly, and they're making sure that none of those lines are leaking. Okay. So the gas company actually gets out there. It's a longer inspection because it's a huge property. The gas company gets out there while I'm still there. Okay. Gas guy comes and finds me in the property, and he was like, wow, that was a great find, son. I was like, well, what'd you find? He was like, well, that main gas line going up the hillside, he was like, which by the way is a huge line. He's like, there's a huge crack in it. He's like, minimum $30,000 fix. The $4.5 million listing. And in my head, I just saved my client $30,000. Okay. Why? Because I use my nose. Why? Because they hired an inspector. Okay. If they waived inspection, this would have never been found. Okay. Imagine if your client moves into the property, they have a huge gas leak in their backyard. The gas has to get shut down. They're displaced. They have to move to another property while it's fixed. It just turns into a major issue, guys. It's just a great example of why you never waive inspections.
Let me ask you a quick question, Ray.
Yeah.
This is one I get all the time. Normally, when we think of inspections, we think of the buyer doing the inspections as part of their investigations in escrow. What would maybe be a time when it would make sense, or you would recommend that perhaps a seller do an inspection, a home inspection prior to listing, to have it as a disclosure? What are your thoughts on that?
Some of my agents, some of my heavy listing agents, they use us exclusively for their pre-listing inspections. Those are known as pre-listing inspections. I highly recommend them probably about a month before you list a property or a couple of weeks before you list a property, okay? So it's all about disclosures. Even if you're listing the property, you want to disclose everything to the client, okay? And it's just a great idea to let your sellers know what condition the property is in, all right? Because a lot of sellers, if they have any pride in ownership, I've been at those inspections where you're going over these defects and the seller's right there and their eyes are just, you can just see the anger in their eyes because they're thinking they have this perfect home that they're selling, that they lived there for the past 25 years. There's nothing wrong with my home. So it's just a great idea to get the condition that the property's in right now, okay? And then some of my, or most of my agents will even post it on the MLS, or they'll disclose it to the potential buyers, especially in this market right now where you're trying to shorten the inspection contingency. You throw everything on the table, okay? So the way it actually works in Northern California, it is completely opposite than Southern California, okay? 98% of home inspections in Northern California are pre-listing inspections. 2% are buyer site inspections. It's polar opposite in Southern California. It's around 99% are buyer site and 1% are pre-listing, okay? So in Northern California, they throw everything on the table.
Yeah, they do a complete package. When somebody wants to write an offer on a house in Northern California, for those that don't know, as an agent representing the buyer, you request from the listing agent their disclosure package, and all the inspections, all the seller disclosures, the whole thing, you get a binder, and that's presented to the buyers, and then they will write an offer accepting of all of all that information, whatever material defects are there or challenges or whatever it is, and then an offer is written accepting that. I don't know, Ray, that doesn't necessarily, I mean, are buyers still then doing other inspections in the course of escrow at that point in Northern California, or they're relying on the seller disclosures?
No, there's around three big companies in Northern California that are highly trusted. They do most of the bulk inspections up there, so their reports are trusted. So the buyers are just accepting those reports because those companies have a great reputation. So most of the time they don't bring in their own buyer side inspector. Southern California, even with the pre-listing, you better believe the chances are the buyers are still going to bring their own home inspector. But by that point, he's searching for anything because the sellers have already had an inspector out there. Everything's disclosed. All the defects are disclosed. So it's more of an easier going transaction. No transaction is easy. So take that with a grain of salt. No transaction is easy, but if it's more of a calmer transaction because you're not hiding nothing. You did your due diligence. You're disclosing everything. This is the condition the property is in. And then it's a great idea too for the sellers because some of these sellers, they want to fix everything in the property. They want to leave the buyers a perfect home. That's not the case in this market right now, especially with some of these houses I've been inspecting. I mean, some of them are in terrible shape and the buyers still aren't getting a concession on it. Okay. So, I mean, I've even stressed it on some of these pre-listing inspections. I'm like, look, this would be a concern of mine. I would probably have this fixed. You don't really need to fix that right here. You don't really need to fix this. This is a concern of mine. I would fix this over here and so on and so forth. So it's just a great idea. It could save your client. And you know, a buyer side inspector, when they bring in their inspector and then they have a general contractor start quoting these defects, the general contractor is going to blow up that price on fixing it. Okay. So you could potentially save your seller tens of thousands of dollars almost.
Right. And that's a great point is if the seller does a pre-listing inspection and has the information, even if they're not going to fix it, as you alluded to, Ray, they can go and get a couple bids on it and now say, hey, look, I know that it needs a furnace, whatever, let's pick a furnace. And I've already spoken with a couple HVAC companies and here's a couple quotes I've got. And it's going to come out in the wash anyway that the house needs a furnace. And now you're avoiding under all the pressure of being in escrow and everyone being all stressed and tense, getting the buyer to come up with some estimate that's 50% or 100% higher than it needs to be.
Exactly. You had a question, Mark? I saw Mark raise his hand.
Yeah, good. Get questions, Mark. Go ahead.
I appreciate it. I was just curious because you had said definitely to get outside bids. Do you ever in your inspection give round estimates, or it's strictly just a line item, you got to get this fixed?
Inspectors aren't supposed to be quoting any defects. Okay. That being said though, I've been known to, I work with a lot of agents at KW and Sino Sherman Oaks. I've been known to let the buyers know or the sellers know, like, look, this is a minor defect. I use the term, this is a handyman job. Okay. And when I use that term, this is a handyman job, chances are it's not going to be that expensive to fix. But when I start saying, hey, you should get an HVAC contractor out here, you should get a foundation contractor out here, you better believe those problems are going to be a little bit more to fix.
So there's kind of like a second part to that question. The neighborhood I live in, and also part of my farming, all the houses are like 1969, and a lot of the plumbing issues from roots underneath, these old pipes and things. So there's a lot of plumbing throughout the whole neighborhood. And on something like that, when your typical inspection, if you don't know that ahead of time, are you actually going into that detail and getting cameras and going through the pipes? Or is it just really, like you said, you walk the property, you smell, you notice things? I mean, are you going to that elaborate of a deep dive into a property? If you don't know about it, I guess.
So even before we answer that, Ray, let's talk about what your company does do for inspections. It's a great question, Mark. So let's talk about, Ray, what you guys can do for your inspections and then pick up by answering Mark's question there.
Okay, so we offer general home inspections, okay? So this covers everything. The way I like to describe general home inspections, it covers the roof and everything underneath it, okay? So we're inspecting the roof, the attic, the foundation. We do inspect the pool. If there is a pool, it is an extra fee. We inspect the pool equipment. ADUs, most of the time, if they're permitted, which most of them are in LA County, but when you start getting into unpermitted ADUs, you start walking a fine line as an inspection company. And when you start inspecting those unpermitted additions, you start walking that fine line. We try to avoid it. We will walk the client through at the end if it is unpermitted. We won't add it to our inspection report, but if it is permitted, we will add it to the inspection report. Okay, we do offer, what you were talking about is the main line of the sewer. Okay, so we do offer sewer scope inspection. A sewer scope inspection is where you put a camera down the main line and you go all the way to the street to where the city's responsible for it, and then you see if there's any root intrusion or any cracks in the main line. Okay, we do offer termite inspections as well. We do offer mold evaluations and air quality sampling as well. But as far as plumbing issues go, besides the main line, if I start getting, so we test every shower fixture, every bathtub fixture, every sink. I let them run for minutes. I've been known to run water excessively because I want to see if that system backs up. Okay, so if that system backs up at the time of the inspection, you have a good idea now that there's probably some type of root intrusion or some type of debris blocking that water in the main line that's causing the system to back up. Okay, but even especially on older homes in the valley, especially Pasadena, Glendale, there's just so many trees everywhere. I always recommend to get a sewer scope done. I mean, granted, I always recommend to get every inspection done underneath the sun. I'm not trying to sell you on something though that I don't think your client needs though. So if the property's brand new, I mean, chances are I'm going to be like, look, it's a brand new property. That main line is brand new. Okay. I would recommend a termite inspection 3 years from now, not exactly right now, but at the end of the day, it's at your client's discretion. You're still going to want to offer it to your clients, but let them know that on a newer property, you really don't get a sewer scope. On a newer property, you really don't get a termite inspection, but you still get a general home inspection. And then if a general home inspector starts finding wood deterioration, or if the system starts backing up, starts finding plumbing issues, then you start thinking about these secondary inspections.
Okay.
Great
Thank
question, Mark. Other questions? I saw somebody's hand go. Go ahead,
There
Miriam.
you go.
Hi. My question is that, so for single family, you suggested first we order general inspection, and based on the year that the house is building and the other condition, you're gonna just move forward and suggest us to do sewer line inspection or termite?
I always recommend, if they're on a single family that's a little bit older, you always want to get a termite inspection done. Okay. And then you always want to get a main sewer line inspection done on an older home. So older home to me is 10 to 20 years. You start getting into that range, I would always consider it. It's just extra due diligence that you're doing. You want to make sure that main line is clean. You want to make sure there's no cracks in it, no root intrusion. But if you don't get a termite inspection done, and this has happened before, the clients are kind of leaning on the home inspector to see if there is any wood deterioration. Okay. And we're not termite inspectors, okay? So the state of California for termite inspectors, it is heavily regulated, okay? I mean, heavily regulated. So you can't really use wood deterioration, or I seen termite droppings over here, because we're not termite inspectors. But we could let you know that we would highly consider getting a termite inspection, okay? And I actually brought up a great point right there. So the termite industry in California is heavily regulated, okay? General home inspectors, I could hire anyone in this meeting right now to be a home inspector with no training, send you on a home inspection, and there's nobody in the state of California that would do anything about it.
All you have to do is go buy a tool belt at Home Depot and print some business cards.
That's it. That's all you need to do. Anybody could be a home inspector. It is completely and truly unregulated. I call it the Wild West of the real estate industry. It is so true. And there is a lot of home inspectors out there who aren't certified. Okay, so there's no licensing for home inspectors. Okay, so that's why I say there's no such thing as a professional home inspector in California. You guys are licensed professional real estate agents. Keyword being licensed. Okay, we're not licensed. We are certified though. There is organizations that certify home inspectors. The training is extensive. So we are InterNACHI certified. So InterNACHI by far is like the gold standard of the home inspection industry. The training is in depth. They're on us every year. We have to retest every year. They keep us updated on new laws. Like, it was funny. I did an inspection a few weeks ago. I inspected this lady's pool and I went over the safety features that her pool was missing. Okay. So in Senate Bill 442 that came out in 2018, in that Senate bill, you need 2 of the 7 safety features listed in that Senate bill in order for your pool to be compliant with the safety features in that bill. This lady had just bought this property in 2018, and she said, my home inspector didn't mention any of this because your home inspector didn't know about it because he wasn't certified. He didn't know what he was doing, okay? So it's very, very important. Even if you don't hire me, do your due diligence, okay? Ask them what their certification is, okay? Home inspector companies, they should carry an E&O policy. We carry a $1 million policy, the maximum allowed in the industry. And I doubled down with their general liability just to make sure you guys are protected. Every home inspection company should be carrying these policies.
Yep, great question. Joanne, did I see your hand go up?
Yes, thank you. First, what you were talking about with Northern California sounds like a wonderful idea, that you do the inspection before the home is listed. So who in Southern California decides that that's not a good idea for us? That would be my first question. And my second question would be in terms of the fees. I guess Ray has given us booklets in the past when we were in the office as to what the costs are, because he sounds obviously very knowledgeable and I'm sure does a great job, but we'd have to know what the costs are ahead of time to tell the buyer or the seller, correct? For the home inspection?
100%. So great questions. So Northern California and Southern California, 2 completely very different real estate markets, 2 different animals, 2 different monsters. Honestly, I don't know who did, they even call termite inspections. They don't even call termite inspections in Northern California. They call them wood destroying organism inspections in Northern California.
Yeah, you don't want to segregate against the termites. It makes them feel bad and then need therapy and stuff, so.
Exactly. So I don't know who decides it. It's just the nature of the market up there and it's the nature of the market down here.
Okay, to that point, Joanne, it just comes down to what the norm is in the area. I think to Ray's point, if what's going on in Southern California stays going on for much longer, I think you will likely start seeing more pre-listing inspections start to happen. And there's going to be a couple reasons for it. One, as Ray talked about, the seller has a little bit of surety that the inspection they're having done is by somebody who is certified. I mean, there's no licensing, but somebody who's reputable. The other big thing is, you know, as Ray's talking about how everybody's trying to shorten investigation periods,
Right.
and how home inspectors are, Ray's driving 6,000 miles a month trying to get all of these things done. You know, you can speed some of that up a little bit by getting these inspections done as you're prepping the house for sale. So now you can get a little bit more information, and then that can allow some of the, potentially at least, some of those investigation periods to be tightened up a little bit more, possibly. So I think we'll probably see more of that. I think probably some of the trepidation in that has been, that means then the seller is going to be fronting a little bit of money. But when you're talking about what the prices are that we're dealing with, I mean, I mean, a general home inspection is, you know, depending on the size of the place, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, you know, $500-ish plus or minus a little. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not a whole bunch of money.
It's not. So some of my heavy listing agents, a part of their listing presentation is that they offer to pay for the pre-listing inspection. Okay. So that's actually in their listing presentation. Hey, we're going to pay for the pre-listing inspection. We're going to get a good idea of what shape the property is in. If it's in rough shape, we might have a few of these things remedied, and then we'll start accepting offers, have the buyer come in, and then everything seems to go a lot smoother at that point. But yeah, it's around, I would say $450 on average. So look, everything's square footage based. 0 to 1,500 square foot starts $365 with us, which is relatively inexpensive compared to some other companies out there. It is a $100 fee for pools, $95 for termite. And that too is also depending on the property. So termite, anytime it gets above 3,000 square feet, usually costs a little bit more. because I mean, termite inspectors are usually only inspecting 0 to 2,500 square foot. So their time is allotted too. When they start spending more time at a property, they're going to charge a little bit more. $250 for a sewer scope inspection. I had a situation the other day though. So if there is multiple main lines on the property, and you will run into this on multi-units and ADUs, if there is multiple main lines on the property, it's $250 for the first line. It's $150 for every additional line after that. Bless you, Aaron.
What about fireplaces, Ray? Do you guys do fireplaces, chimneys?
We do a general on them. Okay. So most of the time we could give you a good idea of what shape the fireplace is in. And then you maybe start thinking about a secondary inspection. You start seeing heavy cracking in the bricking, or if you start seeing some separation, or if it's unlined. If I see an unlined fireplace, I always write it up. And then you start thinking about a secondary inspection. If it's leaning, I've seen a fireplace leaning. You'd be surprised what we run into sometimes.
And then as part of your inspection, I have had the privilege of representing sellers and have buyers there with their home inspector and their agent. And the inspector does not go into the attic space or into a crawl space under the house. What are your thoughts on that? Do you guys do any of that? How does that work?
Sounds like a lazy inspector to me. It honestly does. So attic space is very, very important, just to see if it's insulated, and more than anything to check for rodents. Okay, we're not pest inspectors, but when I start seeing droppings, I write it up. I let the client know to get a pest guy out there. You start searching for wood deterioration, or what I run into a lot of in these older homes, especially when they replace the roof. A lot of the times it was a single layer of roofing before, so they add on multiple layers now. So, and there was no added support. So you start seeing the rafters detaching from the ridge, which is a major concern. We run into that a lot. And then for older properties too, you run into knob and tube wiring, okay? And you only have, Aaron laughs because it's only on very old properties I've run, and which I seem to be doing lately. I don't know what it is, but I ran into like 4 times this past week. So knob and tube wiring.
I just had one. I had looked at 2 houses with buyers, and both of them had knob and tube. It's probably been 1.5 years since I last saw knob and tube wiring.
It's for us, when I see it, I get scared because knob and tube wiring, it's active. Okay. So these are live wires. If you touch them, it'll electrocute you. As an inspector, you got to be careful when you're going up into that attic crawl space and watch where you're putting your hands. I already have a good idea. If it's an older home, I'm going to peek my head up first, make sure I know where I'm putting my hands so I don't touch any live wires. But yeah, we do look for that. And then I have an idea already before I even get to a home, by the age of the home, what I'm going to run into. So from 1970 to 80, I'm looking for aluminum wiring in the main panel. Okay. Anything pre-1935, I'm looking for a brick foundation, which I'm automatically going to write up because it's unreinforced masonry. So even if your client could never reinforce it because there's nothing to bolt into, there's nothing for the bolts to grab onto. Okay. So we write those up automatically. I'm looking for tall cripple walls on hillsides that aren't braced correctly. So I'm already doing my homework before I even get to the property. Okay. And as far as crawling foundations, it is probably the most, I don't know, the not funnest part of the job is the way I like to put it. Okay. It's creepy. If you don't like rodents, you couldn't be an inspector. If you don't like spiders, you couldn't be an inspector. And if you're claustrophobic, you couldn't be an inspector. Okay. So we did a $6 million property in Pasadena 2 weeks ago, or actually last week. Okay. She had a foundation expert out there, foundation contractor. Well, the entry to the foundation was around 4 feet down, and there was like a 4-foot curve above it. So we had to dive head first, like we're diving into a pool, and kind of make your body limp and snake our way into the foundation. That's how important it was for us to crawl it, okay? The last thing you want is to not crawl a foundation. You start finding major ventilation issues, major moisture issues, expansive soil, post in contact with soil. At the end of the day, though, too, I think what sets us apart from every other inspection company out there, and there's a lot of agents for KW and Tino Sherman Oaks that can speak on this, including Dan. I see Dan on the meeting, is we're not alarmist, okay? I truly believe that every problem or every defect can be fixed. We're in 2021. We're not in 1970 anymore, okay? Every problem and every defect can be alleviated now, okay?
Well, and it's funny you just say that, right? Because what I was just thinking is for people who haven't sat through an inspection and you know, haven't gone through the whole process, you know, Ray's talking about all the defects that we're going to find in a house. Every house is going to have them. As Ray just said, it's the point is not to be an alarmist. The point is just to provide that information to the buyers so they know what they're buying. It's
Exactly.
not to say, oh my gosh, this house is, you know, has aluminum wiring, you can't ever buy this house, or, you know, it's unreinforced foundation. That's up for the buyer to decide how they feel about it. The goal is just to provide the information so they can make an informed decision.
So we have our lines, like I've developed my own lines throughout the years. So like for aluminum wiring, I'm like, look, that's what they used in the 70s. That's just the material they use. They don't use it anymore. We do recommend upgrading those services most definitely, but they don't use that type of material anymore. Okay. Or the way my line for cracking in a foundation is awesome. So this is what I tell clients when I tell them I found cracks in their foundation. Welcome to California. It's always going to happen. Okay. We live in the seismic capital of the entire universe. Okay. And it's just always going to happen. All right. But you patch it as you go along. All right. You reinforce it. You get the foundation bolted. And then I do also have statistics and numbers too. It costs on average $800 to fill and seal a good crack in the foundation. Those are actual numbers from a foundation contractor. Okay, so you know, once they hear like, oh well, there was 3 major cracks, around $800, so it's like $2,500 to fill those cracks, and then we could bolt it for around $3,000. That alleviates a lot of their concern. And then also let them know, I'm like, look, the house is from 1940. It's still standing right now. Okay, obviously, whatever has happened to this foundation isn't a big enough issue. The house is not collapsing, okay? But these issues definitely need to get remedied, all right? So I would say the inspection is around 30% actually physically inspecting the property, and 70% is articulation to your client on the defects, okay? Because you want to keep them calm. You want to make sure they're educated about the defects, but you also don't want to blow up the deal, okay? We know
unless it should be.
Exactly.
Unless the house is about to fall down, but.
Yeah, no, if there's major issues, I mean, where the concrete is just completely deteriorating and I'm pulling off 2 by 2 foot chunks of concrete, you better believe I'm stressing that in a different way to the client. But most of the time that's not the case. And we're going to keep them calm, keep you calm, get you to the finish line, because we know how hard it is to go under contract right now. It is extremely difficult.
Other questions? See some hands, or just unmute yourself and go ahead. That's it. Come on, you guys can do better than that. Mark's got something. Here you
Yeah,
go.
I'll do one since no one else is you were saying on sometimes you'll find things that are just like you said. Hey, that's what they did back then. That's how they built the house. When it comes to stuff like that, I'll give an example just of my house because it's easy. There wasn't much clearance. And I know back then the codes weren't up to date like today, where there wasn't much clearance on the outside doors from a pool area. So you're talking like very little clearance, and it obviously could lead to flooding and has led to flooding in the past. Is that something, I mean, but that's something you're not going to like lift up the whole house. You're not going to, you know, is that something you just will put in the notes like, hey, you know, back then, like, will you mention things like that? Or that's a little, you know, too far? Does it make any sense what I'm trying to say? Like,
So you
when
mean
it's code issues that today.
You mean the clearance from the door to the pool, or?
Yeah, just all across the whole house. Just when they built them back then, it's on a slab, but when they built it, you know, they had very little clearance. Where today, I know the codes are like, you know, 7, 8 inches. So
Yeah.
stuff like that, where it's just like you're not gonna live. You know what I mean? You're not gonna. Would you still just mention it in the notes so then this could lead to flooding?
I would mention it. Grading and grading in general is a part of our general inspection. Okay, so I would mention it to the client, like, look, this is how properties were constructed back then. The door is flush with the grate. So if any water comes in right here, chances are there's going to be some water intrusion into your property. We do recommend adding some backfill right here, or maybe even an area drain, so you could alleviate some of this right here.
So you will recommend things. Okay.
Oh,
Because I was
yeah.
curious, 'cause that's in the area I farm. I mean, that's you'll see in some of these ones that are dilapidated. It's because flooding came in, and it's clear as day. Like okay, well that's an obvious one, and so you will still mention it, but obviously that's something that a lot of people aren't gonna. I mean, that's a pretty big fix sometimes.
Yeah, it is a pretty big fix sometimes. I only really stress it if grading and drainage is poor on the entire lot, I'll write it up. I'll write it up, make them aware of it. But if I see it in a couple spots where I see some staining over here, it's not really a big issue. Or I see some previous evidence of water ponding over here, but it's not near the structure, I'm gonna let them know, and you'll see me point at it in the report. And then I make notes in the report that small localized pooling may occur in areas. Area drains may be may be needed at this property. And I'll let the clients know too that I would definitely recommend adding some area drains.
And to that point, Mark, that you know, that's why it's also really important, whichever side of the deal you're on, whether you're representing the buyer or the seller. I do think it's really important for you to be at the property when the home inspection is happening. A lot of listing agents especially aren't present. I do think it's really important because, just as Ray was saying, you know, we'll take grading. So Ray may write in his report that, you know, grading's an issue between the pool and the house. Well, if all I'm doing is reading the report, I may not pick up some of the nuances when Mark say, you know, or the aluminum wiring. That's just how they did it then. At some point, you're going to maybe want to upgrade it. Well, in the report, if it says it's not up to code, that can sound much more major of an issue than if you're there and you're kind of listening into some of the nuances of it. So it is important to be present at these inspections and make sure that there's clarity as to what's going on with stuff.
That's a great point, Aaron. And I wanted to add too, really good real estate agents, really good buyer's agents set proper expectations for their buyers. Okay. And what I mean by that is having an honest conversation with your buyer on what a home inspector is, what his job is, what the expectations are for the inspection. And the way I describe it is help us help you as real estate professionals. Okay. You want your client to be as sharp as a knife when they go to the inspection. So when we start going over these defects, the client's already prepared because you told them we're going to find defects. You told them we're going to find problems. Okay. Really good real estate agents sit down with their clients and have an honest conversation with them that, hey, look, he's going to find some stuff. 100%. That's what his job is. Okay. Guess what? Some of this, most of it could be fixed. If we find a few big ticket items, we'll try to negotiate for it. But be aware that the home inspector is going to find some issues with this property. Okay. And I do highly recommend you have your buyers there. Okay. I dealt with this recently. Only when the buyers are out of country, I understand the situation. But if the buyers just don't want to show up for the sake of not showing up, get them to the property. Okay. Because I wrote up this house like no other recently in Redondo Beach because there was a ton of issues because there was tenants that didn't care about the property. Okay. So the buyers were there. They didn't stick around for the presentation. They flew back to Arizona on their private jet. Okay. Well, they get the report that night. I have the wife calling me. And you could tell her eyes are like this, just, oh my God. You know, she's seen the summary page and her eyes blew up because there was a lot of issues with the property. I was at an inspection. Actually, she called me the next day. I was at an inspection. I couldn't have a conversation with her, so I tried to call her back later. She didn't even answer my call, and they backed out of escrow. Okay? If she was at the inspection, I could articulate it to her that a lot of these issues could be fixed. Okay? Yeah, the property is in a little bit of rougher shape because they had some tenants here that didn't care about the property. But a lot of these items could be alleviated, you know? But I do recommend definitely have your buyers there. It's an easier conversation than rather me sending the report and them reading the report going, oh my God, what just happened? The house is falling apart, obviously.
Not only that, Ray, it's a great opportunity for your buyers to know about the house, right? I mean, if a breaker pops in the house, wouldn't it be great if your buyer, you know, knows where the panel is? Or when, you know, they remember that, hey, I need to have the sewer line hydrojetted in a couple of years, wouldn't it be cool to know where the clean out is? Or,
Exactly.
things like that. So it's a great, where's the filter on the furnace? How do I, those are questions that, Ray, if he's there and if the buyers are there, especially if it's a first-time homeowner, first-time purchase, it's just a lot of sort of general, how do the systems work? What do they do? Where are they? What do I want to look for? How often do I get my AC serviced? All these kinds of questions are fantastic to get answered for your buyer from somebody who's knowledgeable and can give, not the sales pitch. Yeah, you have to change your oil every 2,000 miles kind of a sales pitch, but the real world, if you change the filters a couple times a year, you only need to get it serviced once, however often, and save a little money there also.
It's a great point. It's a great point. To know where somebody's living, if they have a flood in the house or if a pipe busts, well, your main water shutoff valves, it's at the south side of the property, right here next to the pool. You shut it off by turning this handle down. You turn it on by turning this handle up. Those are real life issues that come up, and that it's just great to have your clients there. It's just a better way of business. And you also want to be present too. You don't want to send your clients there just with the inspector and have your clients following the inspector around the whole time of the inspection. For one, it's going to drag my inspection on for 5 hours instead of 2. And for 2, you kind of wrangle your clients, have a conversation with them, keep them happy. We'll get them together at the end of the inspection, go over the summary page with them. Everybody wins at the end of the day.
Awesome. Do we have more questions? We're going to run out of time,
Yeah,
and I know there's another Zoom meeting right after. So other questions?
I've got a question, Ray. What about you talking about the foundation? At what point, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, where do you call in a foundation guy to cut and repair the foundation as opposed to like an epoxy patch or something?
Honestly, that would be a better question for a foundation specialist, but anything over 1/8 of an inch, I do consider bigger cracking. Okay, that's the
Okay.
rule of thumb for inspectors. Anything over 1/8 of an inch, when you start seeing 1 inch separations, those are huge separation gaps
Yeah.
in the foundation, and that would be very concerning.
Okay. What about clay and concrete, clay tile and concrete roofs? Do you guys go on those? Do you, as far as an inspection?
Oh, clay tiles and concrete roofs?
Yeah.
Concrete, you have to walk them very carefully. We do know how to walk them, but I will tell you this. Me and my inspectors, we carry drones on us, and they're a lot easier than walking a roof. Okay, so anything concrete and clay, we pop out the drone. It's not an extra charge. We don't upsell you on it. It makes our life a lot easier. It makes your report a lot cleaner. It makes it look a lot more professional. But yeah, we pull out the drone for anything concrete and clay.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
No
It
problem.
avoids the question of whether or not you cracked the tile or it was cracked before also.
Exactly.
Yeah, good question, Ted. Thanks for that. Anyone else have some questions?
Great. What was the name of your company?
The company, Home Inspection Group. Very easy, very simple,
Okay. Thank you.
very catchy.
We have your business cards and information here at the office too, and in the vault and in Encino as well.
I appreciate it.
What?
Dan will tell you, I'm amazing. I know I'm amazing.
Amazing. Just a quick shout out. I think Mark has a question. I've used Ray as my inspector for my team for the last several years. He was with another company and I was like, Ray, you're not leaving me. But very much not an alarmist and a great support of the office. So I appreciate you being here, Ray, and your time. Very knowledgeable, very responsive. Several of our very top agents have, usually when you bring a new partnership into the office, it takes some time, especially for some of the mega agents in the office to start using them. But I think just to show Ray's character and his professionalism, that people just gravitated to him and started to use him and his company. So highly recommend Ray, so thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you guys. And if we do find, I saw a couple questions come up. If we do find issues with the foundation, I do have vendors that we do recommend. We don't make $1 off of it either. Okay, I just want to make your life as easy as possible. I will recommend vendors to you. and we offer termite inspections, okay? And then at the end of that termite inspection, the client gets a report usually the next day. If it needs to be tented, all the termite damage, the tenting, it's quoted in the report, just like any other termite inspection.
And I know a lot of you guys are in our mentorship program here. Some of you are not, but even though it is COVID, all of your mentors, I mean, that's why we create our program this way. They're all producing agents. So reach out to them, especially when they're doing inspections. See what this looks like firsthand, you know, at the inspection, and walking through the property with your client. As Ray or the inspector goes through and points out the issues, it just makes yourself more knowledgeable and understanding the process for when you do have your first client to work with.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Aaron, Dan, you guys are amazing. Whitney,
Thank you, Ray.
it was great seeing you, Whitney.
I'll
You
see you
guys
on
have
the
a
next
great day.
Thank you,
inspection.
Ray.